Good morning, good noon world. It's coming to noon right now, right? It's about 12 o'clock right now. I know I said I'd make a video 7, 8 days later, but I decided to make a video today. I'm going to give some advice on all you aspiring authors out there. I already made a video in my old series about that. I thought it'd be cool to talk about that today, based off my experience of writing my novel, Las Rosanas. This video won't be long. It might be maybe 30 minutes. I might do maybe a 45-minute video when I'm done. Yeah, it's coming to 12 o'clock, so good noon world. My battery in my old phone's done. But this phone I only use for music. This phone I have here, I use it for calling, texting, looking at the internet. This phone here I use for pretty much all my songs are saved on here. So yeah, so I decided to make a video for you guys today. I'm off today, so I can make a quick video. I'm gonna call it Ivan O'Meara's advice to aspiring authors out there. So all you people out there who want to be authors, I'm gonna give my advice on the writing process based off my experience. Every author, every writer who finished a novel obviously has subjective or objective opinions, obviously, on what you should do. Everyone has a different writing process. But for my personal writing process, I'm going to tell you my personal writing process. Okay? So this is what led me to, I'm going to talk for a bit. This is what led me to write Las Rosanas. I remember this is right after high school, 2010, I believe. Yes, 2010. Yeah, I remember this is right after high school, right after I got smashed in the face with beer bottle. I was depressed, all that stuff. You guys know my story. And I remember every night I would watch movies on my computer, and I would play games on my PS3 or watch movies on my DVD player. I remember my stepfather, one day he kept taking away the internet cord, he kept taking away my PS3, and even the DVD player, and yeah. And sometimes I had nothing to do. I would just go on my computer and play pinball on my computer because I had nothing to do. I wasn't really working at the time. No, I was working at Quiznos, obviously, or I just quit Quiznos. I don't remember. Or I think I quit Quiznos, and I quit Quiznos, obviously, and I was unemployed, and my step-parents kept yelling at me, telling me to go to school. At this time, I was in Adel Ed. I was still finishing up my high school. I was in Adel Ed. Adel Ed is pretty much, I don't know what they call it in the States, but in the States, I think they call it, like a GED or something like that. Like people who didn't finish their school, in Canada, we call it adult education. It's for those people who didn't finish. Adult education is either used for finishing your school or updating your marks for school. I went to Adelaide to finish my school. I took 5 courses in Adelaide. I took grade 10 history, grade 10 English, grade 11 English, grade 11 French, and career. I did a career course. And I ended up finishing my high school, but that's just back to the topic. My stepfather kept taking away the internet cord. So imagine I was bored, I had nothing to do because they were yelling at me saying I'm a failure. I should go to school, finish my school. I was in Adelaide, I was finishing up my school. I should take my life seriously. And that's what led me to go to Heritage in 2017. I told you my story. That didn't work out. I remember one day, I had nothing to do because my stepfather took away the internet cord. He took away my PS3. I bought my own PS3. He took away the DVD player. I couldn't watch any movies. That's how crazy they are, obviously. And I was completely bored. I had nothing to do. So I went on the computer. I took out. Something led me. I don't know what this was. This is God protecting me. Something led me. Okay, what if I just write a story for fun? And I took out a pencil and I took a notebook I started brainstorming, and I was going to write this Islamic story about a guy who was raised in a Muslim home, obviously. About a guy who was raised in a Muslim home, obviously. His father was a powerful imam, and he had a younger brother who was studying with him to become the heirs to become an imam, obviously. And then the older brother, he's the main character. He had his mother and his sister, and his father was teaching him and his younger brother the teachings of Islam, obviously. And then, long story short, throughout his life, his father would beat his sister and his mother, and the lead character got fed up with it. He ends up running away with his mother and his younger sister, and he becomes a Christian. And the Imam is so powerful, he sends people after them, and they're on the run. That was my idea for the story. I wrote 4 chapters of that story, and I ended up quitting. Obviously, why'd you quit, Ivan? 2 reasons. I showed my younger brother the story. He said, Ivan, you shouldn't write this book. You're going to offend Muslims. You're going to offend a lot of Muslims. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. At the same time, the story wasn't really working for me. It was okay. It's not Zaynus, but this is how I practice my writing. I wrote a short story. I wrote over 30,000 words of that book. So this is how I practice my writing. Simsara? This is how I practice my writing. So for all you aspiring authors out there, there's a couple of options I can give you. The first thing you should do, the first thing you got to ask yourself is, do you really want to be a writer? It's a lot of work being a writer. Do you really want to do this full time? That's the first question you got to ask yourself. Do you really want to be a writer full time? As breaking it into the industry is not easy, as most writers do it part time on the side. Obviously, you have to be committed. You have to be consistent with your writing. You have to be determined. You can't procrastinate. Procrastination is the death of writing. You can't procrastinate. You gotta be efficient. You gotta be consistent with your writing. You know what I'm saying? You have to be very, very consistent, obviously. My advice is take creative writing classes in college or online. You can take creative writing classes online to help you with your creativity, obviously. But this goes back to the point of having a creative mind and the big USB. Remember I talked about that? I don't mean to be an asshole, but if you don't have if you're not that creative, you're gonna have a tough time penning down a fantasy novel. I'm talking about fantasy here. You're gonna have a tough time penning down a fantasy novel, but there's ways there's stuff you can do to help yourself. Take creative writing classes, read as much books as you can. I'm personally not a big book reader, but I practice my creative writing by writing my own short story. Well, it was actually a novel I was going to write. I wrote 30,000 words. I didn't finish the book, but I practiced my writing by writing 30,000 pages. That's a lot of words. I wrote 30,000 pages, and that's how I practiced my writing. That's how I was able to pen down my amazing Nassim Zayn's novel, because I practiced my writing. I didn't read much, but I practiced my writing by writing a 30,000 page book. So take creative writing classes, and if you don't want to do that, I recommend you read as much books as you can. Read the best of the best, like J.R.R. Tolkien, George R. R. Martin, Brandon Sanderson. Read all those guys. Watch their lectures on writing. Right? Brandon Sanderson has lectures on writing. There's many ways you can help yourself. You see what I'm saying? And most importantly, practice your writing, practice your craft, and that's how you get better. You write, even if you write your book even if you write a short story and your first short story is shit, at least you wrote it, and that's how you look over it and you get advice from people, see what you need to change, what worked, what didn't work. That's what I did. My Islamic story was not terrible, but it wasn't great. It was okay, but that's how I practiced my writing, and that's how I was able to pen down my amazing Zayn's fantasy novels. I'm sorry. And don't procrastinate. I learned that lesson. When I wrote Last of Zanes, I procrastinated. It took me, I'll talk about it later. Samsara? And it wasn't until a year later that's when I started writing Zanus. Late 2011 is when I started writing Zanus. I started brainstorming Zanus. Obviously. So my advice is take creative writing classes. You can either take creative writing classes online or watch. You can watch it for free on YouTube. YouTube has a lot of creative writing lectures you can watch. Watch that. It'll help you out. And practice your writing. And read. And if you're a reader, read as much books as you can. If you're not a reader, then I recommend you practice your writing. If you're a reader, read as much books as you can. The best fantasy authors out there. J.K. Rowling, George R. Martin, J.R.R. Tolkien, Brandon Sanderson, Stephen Erickson, Patrick Rothfuss. Read those guys. That way you get a better idea how to write a good story. But if you're not a reader like me, at least practice your writing. Write like a 30,000 word short story, even 50,000 word short story. That way you practice your writing, and even if it's shitty, at least you wrote it, and that's how you learn from your mistakes. Okay, this worked. This didn't work in the story. How did I plan out my 3-act structure for my story? The beginning, middle, end, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. You see what I'm saying? Climax of your story. The beginning of your story. The middle of your story. The antagonist. The protagonist. Who is the villain of your story? Who is the protagonist of your story? See what I'm saying? You need to what? Practice your writing. Very important. See what I'm saying? That's what I did. I wrote 30,000 words. What was the name of your story, Ivan? Apostasy. Apostasy was an Islamic story. It was my first book I wrote. That's actually my first book I wrote. I didn't finish it. I wrote 30,000 words of it and I decided to stop. It didn't work out for me, and my younger brother told me, Ivan, you're going to offend Muslims if you write this book. And it was offensive to Muslims because I talk about in the book how in the Quran it teaches you to beat your wife and all that stuff, and I would have offended Muslims. Hence why I decided not to write that. Obviously, well, the book would have been good. It would have been pretty good, but it's not Zanus. Obviously, that was my first time I wrote my own novel. Zanus is not my first novel I wrote, guys. No, I wrote a book before that. I didn't finish it, but I wrote it. I wrote like 30,000+ words of it. 35,000 words. It was pretty. I wrote 4 chapters. And I ended up deleting it. And I remember late 2011, one day I'm like, you know what? I want to write my own fantasy novel. This is before I knew the doors were locked on me, by the way. I was ignorant back then. And I remember I started brainstorming. Obviously. My story was not initially what I wrote down now. I made a few changes. But I had an idea, and this whole concept came into my mind of the North, the South, you know what I'm saying? The Master Wolves, a prince named Tactius. You know what I'm saying? I even wrote down, I brainstormed, I wrote down all the characters I want in the story. Some of the characters, I changed their purpose in the story, obviously. Like Sirius originally, I think, was supposed to be a Northern, but I ended up having him be a Southern, obviously. Lithia, the love of Tactius' life. Lithius, Eritat, the Master Wolf King. Obviously, all these, because I'm creative, obviously, all these, I had a huge imagination in my mind, and I ended up brainstorming everything. Even though I made a lot of changes to the story when I wrote it down, I brainstormed everything. That's when I started my journey for Zanus. Now, I did not pen down the prologue until 2 years later in 2013. So I started the brainstorming process in 2011. I procrastinated. Hence why I learned from my mistakes. Do not procrastinate. If you procrastinate, you're never going to finish your book. I'm telling you right now, man. If you procrastinate with your book, you're never going to finish it. And if you do, it'll take you maybe 10, 15, 20 years to finish it. You don't want to wait 20 years to finish your first novel. You don't want to do that. See what I'm saying? You don't want to do that. It's very important. You don't want to do that. Samsara? You don't want to do that. It took me, I started brainstorming in 2011. I finished my novel officially in 2020. Then I had to rewrite it, but that doesn't count. I finished my book pretty much 2020. So it took me 9 years to finish my book. Because I procrastinated. Hence why I learned from my mistakes. Do not procrastinate when you write a novel. You gotta be consistent. What I did, obviously, I made a goal to write 5 pages a day. Dedicate a good 2.5, 3 hours of your time. Write 5 pages every day. That's why I did starting in 2019. I procrastinated for like 6+ years, 7 years, whatever it is. And finally in 2019, I had a goal to write 5 pages every day. And then within a good year, I finished my book. Some days I was lazy. I took some days off, obviously. But I was very consistent. I was writing 5 pages every day. And that's how I was able to finish my novel. So set a goal for yourself. If you want to write a fantasy novel, a 100,000 word novel, if you write 5 pages every day, that's about 1,000 words a day. In a good 3-4 months, you'll finish your book. That's how you finish your book. You set yourself a goal. Whereas if you procrastinate, you're never going to get it done. And if you do get it done, you'll get it done maybe in 10, 8. You don't want to wait 8 years to finish your novel. You don't want to do that. See what I'm saying? You don't want to wait 10 years, 15 years, 20 years to finish your book. No, you want to get it done. Okay, I want to get my book done in 4, 5, 6 months. Dedicate a goal to write 5 pages every day. That's 1,000 words. About 1,000 words. That's what I did. And then you'll get it done in a few months. And you're done. See what I'm saying? That's my advice. Obviously. And if you write fantasy, you gotta make sure your world is unique and original. Make sure your world building is unique and original. Don't copy other. There's nothing wrong with taking ideas from other authors like I did. I took some ideas from Narnia. I took some ideas from Tolkien. I took some ideas from Star Wars. When I played Star Wars, I have the Star Wars Knights of the Republic game. You have in the Kashyyyk planet, the upper lands and the lower lands. That's where I got my idea for Xenos. Yeah. I have the Star Wars. At the time, I was playing a lot of Star Wars, right? Star Wars Knights of the Republic. I beat the game like 10 times. It's like an amazing game. I got the idea off Xenos, the upper lands and lower lands, off the lands in Kashyyyk. There's nothing wrong with taking ideas from other stories or games or movies, but make sure you make it original and make it unique. Make it your own. Make it original. Don't copy. Don't be a cop-out and copy other people. Otherwise, your fans are going to catch it right away. Make your story your own. Make it original. Make it unique to your own fan base. Samsara? So let's reiterate. My advice to all you aspiring authors out there: take creative classes. Take creative classes if you can. And you can watch stuff on YouTube for free, right? I recommend you do that. Read as much books as you can if you're a book nerd. If you're not a book nerd, at least take creative writing classes. Watch Brandon Sanderson's lections on YouTube about writing a fantasy novel. Those will help you out. And I recommend you practice your writing by write a short story or a couple short stories if you can. That way you practice your writing, get feedback from people, see what you need to improve on, what you don't need to improve on, or at least write your own short story. Write a short story, like try to write a good maybe like 5,000, 10,000 words, and you go over and you see what you need to improve on. That's how you practice your writing before you pen out your first fantasy novel. Obviously, I recommend you brainstorm. You brainstorm the outline of your story. That's what I did. It doesn't have to be initially what like. There's a lot of authors who brainstorm their book, but then they end up making a lot of changes to what they brainstormed. There's something wrong with it. I did that. I brainstormed my novel, but I made quite a bit of changes to what I originally brainstormed, because as you write, you come up with new ideas. Okay, I want to change this. This will be better for the story. There's context, obviously, but it doesn't hurt to do a little bit of brainstorming before you write down your novel. obviously. But there's two different kind of authors, obviously. George R. R. Martin talked about this. He talked about the architect and the gardener. The architect is the one who has everything already planned out from beginning to end. The gardener lets the story grow on him. As he writes, new ideas come in his head, come in his or her head. They make this change. They tell this story. As they write, they come up with more ideas. They don't really have an end plan to the story. They let the story grow on them. That's what a gardener is. I'm a gardener, like J.R.R. Tolkien, like George R. R. Martin. When I wrote Zanes, I let like the story grow on me, and as I wrote, I had all these ideas in my mind. That's how I was able to finish my book. I didn't have the ending planned out for my book Zanes. I brainstormed the chapters, but I took like very little notes. I let the story flow as I wrote. That's a gardener. Whereas the architect already has the whole story planned out. So you have two choices when you choose to write your novel, your manuscript. Either you plan everything out like completely before you even pen down your book, or you brainstorm and you have some ideas of what we want to happen in each novel, but you don't really know how the story's going to end. You let the story grow on you. You let the story flow as you write. That's what a gardener is. That's the way George R. R. Martin writes. That's the way I write. I'm not an architect. I didn't really have the whole story planned out, but I wrote some notes. I had some ideas for each chapter, but that's that's how I finished my book Zanes, obviously. And now it's the best fantasy novel I've written. It's an amazing book. I'm going over volume 3 right now. I read it, I'm like, this is fucking sick. This is an amazing book, yeah, man. It's a masterpiece. Yeah, I have the keys to the kingdom, and this book is gonna make me a multi-billionaire. It's gonna make me rich. Yeah, that's my story, and that's my advice to all you aspiring authors. Samsara, why? What about getting published? That's a different topic. I mean, you have two choices. You either choose to self-publish or you choose to traditionally publish. I told you, traditionally publishing, you have to get a literary agent. So you have to submit your manuscript to literary agents, and you're going to get a lot of rejections, by the way. If you're lucky to get one, now the agent has to get you a book publishing deal. Obviously, the pros of traditional publishing is the you get the public eye fame. If your book is a huge hit, you're going to have book signing sessions. You're going to get interviewed by all these people. Jimmy Fallon show, all that stuff. You're going to be featured on a magazine, you know what I'm saying? But the publishing houses own your book. And you're a puppet. They own your book. If they want to change your characters and your story, they can do that. The editors can change that. And they only give you 5 to 50% of the royalties. If your book's a hit, you're going to make a lot of money, but it's not the kind of money you're going to make if you self-publish. See, if you self-publish, all that money goes to you. But the con of self-publishing is you have to do everything yourself. You're responsible for marketing your book. You're responsible for getting your book edited. That's expensive. You have to hire an editor to proofread your book. If you want someone to change your story and help you with the characters and plot, then you have to hire a copy editor, which I don't need. I don't need a proofreader. My book is already sick. I don't need a copy editor, but I need a proofreader. You need to hire someone to do your cover for your book. Your cover for your book, obviously. And your book will not be at Barnes & Nobles in the States or Chapters in Canada. Self-publishing is all online. It's all online. Self-publishing is all online. So Amazon, Lulu, or you can create your own website and sell your book there. But most self-publishing authors usually self-publish on Amazon or Lulu. I'm personally going with Lulu because Lulu has Lulu gives me 80% of the royalties of the profits, and they take 20. Amazon, I think they give you less than Lulu. I think Amazon they take like 40% or some of that, 35% of your money. Lulu gives me 80% of the profits, and they take 20. I get 80%, they take 20 of the profits. Now compare that to the 50% I would make if I traditionally published. I signed with Penguin Random House, the biggest book publishing house in the world. Penguin Random House is the biggest book publishing company in the world. If I signed with them, I would get 50% of the royalties. I'd still be filthy rich, but they'd be taking the majority of the money. I'd be famous in Hollywood and all that stuff, and have all these interviews, but what? I'm not going to set that deal as I have my own keys. I can self-publish. I'm saying? I'm not going to let the gates do like that. Why would I traditionally publish and have them? I don't want anyone touching my story. First of all, they're going to ruin my story. And that money that the publishing houses are taking belongs to me. It doesn't belong to them. You didn't write my book. You're only making that money because of my keys. Because if I traditionally publish, the publishing houses wouldn't even have to spend a dime on marketing because I have the keys. So you're only making, all that money you're making is going to you when it should be going to me. I self-publish it on Lulu, I make 80% of the profits. All the money goes to me, and Lulu takes 20%. And PayPal takes like 1.8% of my royalties. So I'm making 78.2% of the pie. That's a good chunk of the money going to me. Compare that to traditional publishing, you see the difference, obviously. I'm not going to force you. It's up to you. You have two choices. You can either go the indie route, self-publish your book, make it your own business, and if your book say, hey, you'll make way more money, but you get simple fame like maybe YouTube interviews, but you're not going to be having all these book signing sessions. You're not going to be on Jimmy Fallon and all that stuff. If you self-publish, you'll get interviews maybe on YouTube, but you're not going to get like the public eye fame like if you traditionally publish. You know how you see George R. R. Martin, J.K. Rowling, they get interviewed at all these big venues and all that stuff. For self-publishing, that doesn't happen. There may be some exceptions, but it doesn't happen if you self-publish. Self-publishing, you might get YouTube interviews. You get interviewed by a lot of YouTube interviews, radio interviews, that kind of stuff. But you're not. It's more simple fame, but you make more money. You control your novel. You understand? With traditional publishing, you don't control it. The gatekeepers of the book publishing business control it. You're their puppet pretty much. And if they tell you to write a 3-book series, you gotta write a 3-book series. With self-publishing, you can take your time. You write your first book. No one's forcing you to write a sequel. It's up to you. If you want to write a sequel, take your time, write your sequel. Don't take too long. You don't want to keep your fans waiting. But you can take your time with your sequel. With traditional publishing, they actually put pressure on you. Hey, finish the book, finish the book. Unless you're someone big, like J.K. Rowling, they might not pressure you because you're already an established brand. Because George R. R. Martin, I heard he hasn't published his 6th book, Winds of Winter, and the fans have been waiting for like 13 years, I heard. You don't want to do that, obviously. Procrastinate. But it's up to you what path you want to take. I recommend self-publishing, but if you want to self-publish and be famous, that's fine. Be a famous author. But I'm just saying that the gatekeepers of the publishing business are going to control your book, obviously, and you're their puppet, and they're taking most of the pie. They're going to give you peanuts, like 5, 10, 50%. They're going to give you peanuts. With self-publishing, the majority of the money goes to you because it's you're doing all the work. It's more expensive publishing. You gotta try to save at least a good. Like you're gonna need to save at least a good like $3,000-$4,000 if you want to self-publish. But you have because editing is very pricey, especially copy editing. Copy editing. I recommend you don't have a copy editor edit your book. Just have your book proofread. You don't want anyone ruining your story, unless they can make your book better. But if you wrote an amazing book or a pretty good book, you don't want to have it copy edited. You want your book to be truly your own DNA. Don't hire a copy editor to edit your book, because that can ruin They can ruin your story. I don't want anyone touching my story. They're gonna ruin it. I wrote an amazing book. I don't want anyone touching my story. But you need a proofreader to edit your grammar, punctuation, spelling, typos, all that stuff. Obviously. And you need someone to create a cover for you. Unless you want to do a simple cover like me, with the trees and all that stuff, that's simple. But you want someone to do a cover. I might do a cover. I don't know. A cover. Now I'm not gonna have a cover. I'm gonna have the mysterious cover. Something nice. And you have to market your book. I'm lucky. I have the keys. I don't have to worry about marketing. But you're going to have to market your book out there. I made a video on this advertising many years, like 5 years ago. Remember that video, guys? I told you my ideas on what you can do to market your story. Tell as many of your Facebook friends, Instagram friends about your book. Put it out there on your social media. Go make flyers, hand it out at university campuses, stamp, staple flyers at university campuses, hand out flyers down at university campuses. A lot of university students like reading books. Hand it out to the university campuses and schools as much as you can. Now you get the word out there. If you have a YouTube channel, you know what I'm saying, a pretty big YouTube channel, promote it on YouTube channel. If you don't have a YouTube channel, I recommend you do the handout pamphlets and put it out there on social media as much as you can. But don't do it last minute. Build it up. Hey guys, my book's coming out. You have 2,000 followers on Facebook, 500, 800 followers on Instagram, 1,500 followers on Instagram, 800 followers on Twitter, and you might have a good chance of selling maybe 1,000, 1,500 copies. You didn't make that much money, but at least you sold some books, and that's how you build your brand. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm gonna be honest here. The chances of you making it into the writing industry is not high. Your chances are not high. Chances are, and if you do write a book, chances are you're gonna sell very few copies. But I told you ideas of what you can do to put your name out there. If you know someone who has a large following, ask him to promote your book. There's many ways you can get your book out there, but it's not easy. Hence why those who have a large following on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook are lucky, like the celebrities, because they have a huge fan base. They can easily turn their books into bestsellers because they have a large fan base. I have a large fan base. I'm the son of God, obviously. I have the keys to the kingdom. That's why the marketing is taken care of for me, because I have the keys. I release something new, the world knows, because I have the keys to the kingdom. Shut my camera, guys. You guys will see me in part 2. I hope you guys enjoyed this video about my advice to aspiring writers.